June 6, 1944, 05:28 a.m. The English Channel churns under a pale gray sky. Wind howls through the cold mist, whipping seawater against the faces of soldiers packed shoulder to shoulder inside steel craft. The air smells of oil, salt, and fear. Ahead, the faint outline of France is barely visible, a dark line beyond the waves. Engines roar as hundreds of small boats cut through the surf, each loaded with men clutching rifles, packs, and nerves. Their knuckles turn white around the edge of the ramp, waiting for the moment it slams down. Overhead, the thunder of naval guns shakes the air. The largest armada in history has begun its assault. But beneath the chaos, there's something few of these men know. The boat carrying them toward hell wasn't built by a general or even by the Navy. It came from the mind of a stubborn civilian, a Louisiana boat builder named Andrew Higgins. Each craft, the Higgins LCVP landing craft, vehicle, personnel, skims across the waves with a flat bottom that defies the storm. Unlike deep-hulled ships that would run aground or capsize in shallow water, these boats glide until their steel noses scrape the beach itself. Machine gun fire crackles ahead, mortar shells burst in the surf. 30 seconds, shouts a coxswain over the roar of the motor. The soldiers brace themselves, some whisper prayers, others stare blankly at the ramp waiting for it to drop. When it does, the world explodes. Water sprays, bullets tear through the air. The men surge forward through waist-deep water, through fire, through death. Behind them, the Higgins boats reverse, engines screaming, pulling back through the surf to pick up another wave of men. Again and again, all day long, these squat wooden and steel craft deliver soldiers, jeeps, and supplies directly onto the beaches. Without them, there is no landing, no foothold, no D-Day. And far away from the chaos of Normandy in the humid streets of New Orleans, the man who designed them, Andrew Jackson Higgins, sits by a radio, listening in silence. He's not a soldier, he's not an admiral, but his creation is now the beating heart of the invasion. Decades earlier, no one in Washington wanted him. His designs were dismissed as ugly, crude, and unorthodox. Yet now, those same designs are the reason thousands of Americans are still alive. This is the story of the civilian who defied the Navy, outsmarted bureaucracy, and turned a simple swamp boat into the vessel that carried an army to victory. New Orleans, Louisiana, 1938. The smell of cypress wood and diesel lingers over the Higgins Industries shipyard. Men in rolled-up sleeves hammer, weld, and plane the rough hulls of boats designed not for war, but for work, sturdy craft meant to navigate the muddy bayous and shallow swamps of the Gulf Coast. At the center of it all stands Andrew Jackson Higgins, a stocky man with a sharp voice and a faster temper. He's not a military man, he's a builder, a problem solver, and according to some, a troublemaker. Higgins doesn't wear the polished shoes or calm demeanor of Washington's engineers. He curses, smokes, and demands results. His pride is a boat he calls the Eureka, a shallow-draft cargo vessel that can skim over inches of water, run aground, then pull itself free again. It's perfect for the Louisiana marshes where deep-keeled ships get trapped. But when Higgins looks at the rising tension overseas, at headlines from China, from Europe, he senses something others don't. He believes this same design could change the way wars are fought. He starts showing it to anyone who will listen. Navy officers, Marine Corps inspectors, defense officials, most walk away shaking their heads. Too flat, they say, too light, too strange. The Navy's procurement process is locked in tradition, slow, bureaucratic, and hostile to outsiders. Higgins, a self-taught designer from New Orleans, doesn't fit their mold. But Higgins refuses to quit. He modifies the Eureka for military use, adding armor plating, reinforced ramps, and improved engines. He demonstrates its ability to hit a beach, unload cargo, and reverse without bogging down. He knows amphibious warfare will one day decide the course of battle. One day, a small group of U.S. Marine Corps officers visits his yard. They've been struggling with their own problem, how to land men and vehicles directly on hostile shores. The Navy's official designs keep failing, grounding in shallow surf or trapping troops. Higgins fires up his boat and invites them aboard. He pilots the craft full speed into a muddy bank, throws the throttle into reverse, and slides cleanly back into open water. The Marines stare in disbelief. They've never seen anything like it. Still, the Navy isn't impressed. The brass dismiss him as unreliable, too aggressive, and too independent. But one voice inside the Pentagon, Colonel Victor Krulak of the Marines, refuses to let the idea die. He sends secret reports to Washington praising Higgins' design as the answer to every landing problem we have. Higgins doesn't wait for permission. He builds more boats anyway, improving each one. His design evolves. The Eureka becomes the LCVP with a bow ramp that drops open, letting soldiers rush straight onto the sand. A simple, genius idea, one that none of the Navy's committees had thought to try. By 1941, as war breaks out across Europe and the Pacific burns, Washington's attitude changes. America suddenly needs fast, versatile landing craft, thousands of them, and only one man in the country already knows how to build them. That man is Andrew Higgins, the builder nobody wanted, now holding the blueprint to victory. New Orleans, 1942. The city hums day and night. Sparks fly from welding torches, saws scream through planks of mahogany, and engines roar as test craft slide down wooden ramps into the Mississippi River. What began as a small Gulf Coast boatyard has exploded into an industrial empire, Higgins Industries, the lifeline of America's amphibious fleet. Andrew Higgins stands on the platform of his factory, cigar clenched in his teeth, watching his men work in synchronized chaos. Thousands of them, carpenters, welders, draftsmen, machinists, labor under the heat, their shirts soaked through with sweat and oil. Many had never seen a shipyard before the war. Housewives, farmers, even teenagers from the French Quarter now shape the boats that will carry the Allied invasion. Higgins trains them fast. He doesn't believe in waiting for Washington's red tape. If they can swing a hammer, he says, they can build a boat. He hires women, African Americans, immigrants, anyone who can work hard and work fast. While other factories struggle with discrimination and union strikes, Higgins Industries runs on merit and speed. Everyone builds together, everyone ships together. By mid-1942, the Navy's order sheets arrive by the thousands. LCVPs, LCIs, LCMs, every class of landing craft the war demands. The Higgins plants, spread across New Orleans, run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Assembly lines stretch for blocks. Paint fumes mix with river fog. At night, floodlights burn through the darkness, making the factory glow like a beacon. Still, the pressure is brutal. Washington keeps demanding more. The Navy sends inspectors, accountants, and bureaucrats who try to slow him down with regulations. Higgins roars at them, slamming blueprints on desks and shouting, "If we followed your rules, we'd lose this war." His engineers back him up with raw results. They can build a complete LCVP in less than 2 days. Trucks haul them to the docks where they're stacked and shipped to every corner of the globe, the Solomon Islands, North Africa, Italy, and soon, northern France. Each boat carries the same signature, a square steel ramp, a flat wooden hull, and the stamped words, HIGGINS, New Orleans, USA. But behind the roaring success lies exhaustion. Higgins rarely sleeps. His temper flares. His workers idolize him, but they also fear his perfectionism. Every rivet must hold, every motor must start on the first pull. He knows what's coming, a massive amphibious assault that will decide the fate of the war, and he knows his boats will be on the front line of it. Late one night, he walks the factory floor, inspecting rows of finished craft under dim lights. He runs his hand across a steel ramp, feels the cool metal, and exhales slowly. These aren't just boats anymore. They're lifelines, each one a vessel that will carry men toward the unknown. Outside, the Mississippi reflects the factory lights like molten glass. A whistle blows, signaling another shift change. Higgins looks out toward the river and mutters quietly, "They'll need every one of them." And soon they will, because across the Atlantic in England, Allied commanders are planning an invasion so vast that every Higgins boat ever built will have a role to play. Portsmouth, England, May 1944. The docks are packed from horizon to horizon. Rows of gray-painted landing craft bob against the tide, each marked with a white star and a code number. Soldiers from every corner of the Allied world swarm across the piers, Americans, British, Canadians, Poles, and Free French loading crates, jeeps, and rifles. The invasion is no longer a secret. It's a storm waiting for a signal. Among the vessels, the Higgins boats stand out. Their blunt noses and squat frames look nothing like traditional ships. They're ugly, functional, and everywhere. Navy coxswains run drills over and over, learning to drop the bow, ramp, turn, and back out through waves before the next wave of troops arrives. The rhythm becomes mechanical: land, unload, reverse, repeat. For many, this is the first time they've seen these little boats up close. To the soldiers climbing aboard, they seem small, too small to face the full force of German coastal defenses. But to the planners behind Operation Overlord, these boats are the key. Without them, there's no way to land on an open beach under fire, no way to move tanks, trucks, or men from sea to land in a single push. Behind the scenes, Admiral Ernest J. King and General Dwight D. Eisenhower know it too. Eisenhower, after visiting the production yards back in the States, had once told reporters, "Andrew Higgins is the man who won the war for us." He meant it. Every plan drawn on the walls of Allied command depends on those shallow draft boats getting men to shore. As June approaches, the final rehearsals begin. At Slapton Sands, a quiet English beach chosen for its similarity to Normandy, thousands of troops practice amphibious assaults. Higgins' boats swarm toward the sand, ramps crash open, soldiers pour out, and chaos unfolds. Miscommunication, friendly fire, even German U-boats slipping into the area claim lives. The rehearsal turns tragic, but commanders take note. This is what invasion will look like: confusion, smoke, and the need for discipline under fire. Yet through it all, the landing craft perform exactly as designed. Even when shells fall and waves rise, they hit the beach, drop the ramp, and back away, battered but intact. Word spreads through the ranks. "These Higgins boats can take a beating," one Marine writes home. "They ride like a mule, but they get you there." Back in New Orleans, Higgins keeps receiving telegrams, status updates, production requests, maintenance reports. He knows his boats are being staged for something monumental, but even he doesn't know where or when. "Just make more," the War Department insists, and he does. By June 1944, Higgins Industries has built over 20,000 landing craft, enough to carry an army across the English Channel. Then, in the first days of June, orders roll out under sealed envelopes. The boats are assigned to sectors: Omaha, Utah, Gold, Juneau, Sword. Crews are briefed on tides, currents, and German defenses. And on the night of June 5th, the English Channel comes alive with motion. Thousands of ships depart their harbors, stretching as far as the eye can see. Destroyers, battleships, transports, and in between them, the small, flat silhouettes of the Higgins boats riding low in the water. Inside, soldiers huddle in silence, their helmets tapping against their rifles with each wave. In the darkness, one sailor runs his hand along the steel ramp and whispers, "This thing better hold." It will. And before dawn, when the ramps crash down on the beaches of Normandy, the world will learn just how far one man's design can carry an army. June 6, 1944, Normandy, France. Dawn breaks through smoke and gunfire. The sea burns with the glow of tracer rounds and exploding shells. Across 50 miles of coastline, the greatest invasion in human history has begun. The Higgins boats surge toward the beaches in endless waves. The surf churns white beneath them, bullets skipping across the water like rain. Inside each craft, 30 soldiers crouch shoulder to shoulder, hearts pounding, gear clattering, their faces pale beneath the weight of fear and salt spray. "Hold fast," a coxswain yells, gripping the wheel with both hands as his boat slams through the tide. Ahead, the beach looks like chaos: smoke, barbed wire, shattered obstacles jutting from the sand. The sound is deafening: the roar of engines, the crash of artillery, the screams of wounded men carried by the wind. Then suddenly the beach looms close. Ramp down. The front gate crashes open. The first men leap into the water, sinking knee-deep in the surf. Some fall instantly. Others charge forward, pushing toward the dunes through machine gun fire that tears the sea into foam. Behind them, the Higgins boat reverses, its propellers thrashing the water as the coxswain pulls it back into deeper surf. Within minutes, it's gone, turning, circling, heading back to a transport ship for another load. Each boat will make the run again and again, ferrying men, vehicles, and ammunition through the maelstrom. On Omaha Beach, conditions are hellish. Waves smash into obstacles. Engines stall in rising water, yet the Higgins boats endure. Their flat hulls ride high enough to survive the breakers, their reinforced ramps take the punishment of steel and sand. Crews fight exhaustion, pulling survivors aboard, dragging wounded men out of the surf. On Utah Beach, the tide pushes the landing force nearly 2,000 yards off course, but the boats adapt. Coxswains improvise new landing zones, maneuvering between sandbars and mines. The soldiers still get ashore. The invasion holds. By noon, the beachhead begins to form. Tanks roll off the larger LCMs, the Higgins tank boats lumbering past wreckage and craters. Medics wade through surf to reach the wounded. And still, the little landing craft keep coming, battered, leaking, some riddled with bullet holes but still afloat. From the air, the sight is staggering. The coastline is carpeted with gray boats, hundreds of them scattered like pebbles along the shore. Each one represents dozens of men delivered, hundreds of lives changed. By nightfall, more than 156,000 troops have landed in France. Every single one of them reached shore by way of a Higgins-designed craft. Far across the ocean in New Orleans, Andrew Higgins listens to radio updates, chain-smoking in his office. Reports come in by telegram: beaches secured, landing successful, casualties high but progress steady. He doesn't smile, he just exhales, rubs his temples and murmurs, "They made it." For all his fire and fury, Higgins had never been to war. But through the sweat of his workers and the stubbornness of his design, he gave soldiers a fighting chance. His boats turned an impossible invasion into a victory. In the days that followed, Allied soldiers began calling the LCVP by another name, the boat that won the war. And in the years after, when Eisenhower looked back on the campaign that broke Hitler's fortress, he didn't credit a weapon or a general. He credited a builder, a civilian from New Orleans who refused to take no for an answer. Andrew Higgins never set foot on the beaches of Normandy. But every man who did got there because of him. Summer 1944, New Orleans. The war presses on across Europe, but back in Louisiana, the roar of the factories still hasn't stopped. The air smells of hot steel and paint. Workers wipe sweat from their faces, unaware that the boats they built weeks earlier now rest broken and burned on foreign shores. Yet the orders keep coming: more landing craft, more supply vessels, more engines to feed the invasion pushing toward Paris. Andrew Higgins moves through the plant floor, clipboard in hand, voice echoing across the noise. "Keep those lines running," he shouts. The foreman nods, sparks flying from welders as another LCVP takes shape. Despite the success in France, Higgins feels no pride, only urgency. Every delay, every mistake could mean another platoon stranded on a beach, another life lost. He's not alone anymore. Washington finally recognizes what his boats have done. Military officers arrive at the factory, shaking his hand, congratulating him for exceptional service to the nation. But Higgins barely listens. He's already pushing for improvements: stronger hulls, faster engines, more efficient designs for the Pacific. The next fight, he knows, will be fought across islands even more unforgiving than Normandy. In Washington, his name circulates through the highest ranks. Navy procurement officers, once skeptical, now speak of Higgins Industries with something close to reverence. Even President Roosevelt knows who he is, the civilian who made amphibious war possible. And still, Higgins fights battles of his own. Rivals in the shipbuilding industry want contracts. Politicians try to control his production lines. Some call him too independent. Others whisper that his temper makes him dangerous to deal with. But those who have met him know the truth. His temper isn't ego, it's urgency. The war isn't over, and Higgins refuses to slow down while a single soldier still needs a way ashore. Late at night, he sits alone in his office, the hum of machinery drifting through the open window. On his desk lies a black-and-white photo, a Higgins boat unloading soldiers under fire at Omaha Beach. He stares at it for a long moment, the glow of his desk lamp catching the edge of the paper. He knows those men never met him. They never knew his name. But they trusted the steel and wood his hands had shaped, and that's enough. Beyond the walls of the factory, the Mississippi rolls quietly toward the sea, carrying with it the spirit of every ship he built. Soon, those waters will flow into the Pacific, toward a new front, a new challenge that will again call for the same stubborn ingenuity that started it all. The beaches of France may have proven his boats could win a war, but in the Pacific, they will decide how it ends. Autumn 1944, somewhere in the western Pacific. The morning sun climbs over a haze of salt and diesel. In the distance, the dark outline of an island rises from the sea, another fortress in Japan's vast defensive ring. The sea around it is alive with movement: carriers, destroyers, transports, and hundreds upon hundreds of small landing craft, all bobbing in formation like a metallic swarm. The men aboard these landing craft know what's waiting for them. The beaches of Saipan, Guam, Peleliu, and soon Iwo Jima have already shown the world that every inch of Pacific sand will be bought with blood. Yet as they grip their rifles and steady themselves against the waves, there's one small comfort: they trust the boats beneath their feet. Each vessel bears the same mark on its hull: Higgins Industries, New Orleans. The coxswains shout orders as the engines roar to life. Waves crash against the blunt bows. These are the same LCVPs that braved the Atlantic storms on D-Day, now refitted for tropical warfare. Their ramps drop into coral shallows, their flat hulls sliding across reefs that would shatter other boats. Even under fire, they move with precision, depositing Marines onto beaches laced with barbed wire and mines. One after another, Higgins' craft bring the fight ashore. They deliver tanks, artillery, and fuel. When shells hit, they burn but rarely sink. Their simple design allows quick patching and repair. Crews learn to keep them running with little more than a wrench and a torch. On the island of Leyte, as General MacArthur's forces storm back into the Philippines, hundreds of Higgins boats weave through the surf like a living machine. Veterans from Normandy recognize the design instantly: the flat bottom, the drop gate, the sound of the engines grinding against the tide. Same boats, one Marine mutters, half smiling, different ocean. For the Japanese defenders, it's a nightmare, every time they think they've contained a landing. More boats appear, coming through the smoke, riding waves of artillery fire, unloading another wave of troops. From the beach to the horizon, it looks endless. In Washington, military planners track the progress of each campaign. They calculate logistics: how many landings, how many replacements, how many Higgins boats are still seaworthy. The numbers are staggering. By late 1944, nearly every major amphibious operation in both theaters, Europe and the Pacific, depends on Higgins' designs. Meanwhile, back in New Orleans, Higgins receives telegrams stamped urgent. The Navy wants new prototypes, faster models for the island-hopping offensive, larger craft capable of carrying tanks directly into battle. Higgins, exhausted but relentless, sketches revisions himself, sending blueprints overnight to the yards. He knows the tide of war is shifting. Europe is collapsing, but in the Pacific, the cost of victory grows heavier with every mile. His boats now carry not only infantry but the wounded, the fallen, silent passengers on their return trips from the front. The same ramps that delivered men into battle now lower again to bring them home. As 1945 dawns, the battles of Iwo Jima and Okinawa loom, operations so brutal they will test every invention, every design, every man who dares to steer a Higgins boat toward enemy fire. For the Marines who survive the surf, the name Higgins becomes more than a manufacturer's stamp. It's a symbol of endurance, the bridge between ship and shore, life and death, victory and loss. And as the Pacific burns, the legend of Andrew Higgins grows with every landing. April 1, 1945, Okinawa, Japan. The horizon is a jagged line of smoke and steel. Waves pound against the hulls of the invasion fleet, carrying tens of thousands of soldiers toward the blood-soaked beaches. The Pacific sun glints off the flat bows of the Higgins boats, now battle-hardened and scarred from years of service. Inside each craft, Marines cling to their rifles, faces smeared with salt and grime. The coxswains shout over the roar of engines, artillery, and crashing waves. Every landing is a gamble, every beach a potential trap. Mines, hidden obstacles, and entrenched defenders await them. The Higgins boats push forward relentlessly. Ramp doors slam open and men surge into the surf, knee-deep, waist-deep, sometimes chest-deep, racing toward the sand while bullets tear through the water around them. Explosions lift walls of water, and yet the craft endure, riding the surf, then backing away to carry the next wave. Behind the chaos, larger landing craft, LCIs and LCMs, unload tanks, jeeps, and supplies, their movements choreographed with precision honed from Normandy to Leyte. Each vessel carries the mark of Higgins Industries, proof that one man's vision can move an army across oceans and into history. The battle rages for weeks. The islands are defended with fanatic intensity, and the Japanese forces know the coastline intimately. Every inch of sand is mined, every bunker fortified. But the landing craft continue to deliver men, weapons, and hope to the embattled soldiers on shore. In the command tents behind the front, generals watch the landing unfold. Reports come in: Higgins boats performed as expected, rapid deployment successful, casualty evacuation underway. They understand that without these vessels, the invasion could have faltered. Without them, entire regiments might have been stranded offshore, exposed to relentless fire. Far from the beaches, Andrew Higgins receives updates from his factory. Each telegram tells of another landing, another wave of troops delivered, another small miracle of engineering proving its worth. He doesn't boast. He doesn't celebrate. He simply notes the numbers and pushes his teams to refine designs for the next operation. For the soldiers fighting and dying on the beaches, the boats are more than steel and wood. They are lifelines, the thin margin between chaos and order, between hope and defeat. And As the final waves push ashore, it becomes clear that the humble craft born in the swamps of Louisiana have rewritten the rules of amphibious warfare. By the time the sun sets on Okinawa, tens of thousands of troops have reached the beaches, supplied and reinforced by Higgins boats. The invasion succeeds, but at immense cost. Every landing tests the endurance of both man and machine, yet each vessel returns to carry more men, more supplies, more hope. The legend of these boats and the man who built them is now sealed. From the stormy coasts of Normandy to the coral reefs of the Pacific, Higgins boats have carried a nation through its darkest hours, bridging the gap between planning and victory, between imagination and execution. Late 1945, New Orleans, Louisiana. The war is over, but the hum of Higgins Industries continues. The factories are quieter now, fewer boats slip down the ramps into the river, but the echoes of years of labor linger in every corner. Andrew Higgins walks among the empty slipways, the smell of sawdust and oil still clinging to the air. For him, victory is measured not in parades or medals, but in the men who made it home because of his designs. Across the globe, veterans recount their experiences with the small, unassuming boats that carried them into the jaws of enemy fire. From the beaches of Normandy to the coral islands of the Pacific, stories circulate of Higgins boats that rode swells under bombardment, survived shellfire, and delivered soldiers safely onto hostile sands. To them, the name Higgins is synonymous with survival, ingenuity, and endurance. Military leaders recognize his contributions too. Dwight D. Eisenhower, reflecting on the success of D-Day, calls Higgins the man who won the war for us. Admirals and generals testify to Congress, describing how these small, flat-bottomed boats made amphibious assaults possible on a scale previously unimaginable. The LCVP is studied in naval academies, replicated in post-war shipbuilding, and becomes the blueprint for every future landing craft. Yet Higgins himself remains humble. He does not seek fame or glory. He is a man of action, not ceremony, more comfortable amidst the smell of wet timber and steel than in the glare of a spotlight. When asked about his legacy, he simply replies, "I just built the boats, the soldiers did the rest." The world moves on, but his invention endures. Higgins' boats inspire new generations of amphibious craft, shaping conflicts for decades to come. Engineers, military strategists, and historians alike study his methods, the ingenuity of a civilian mind solving problems the military bureaucracy could not, the courage to defy skepticism, and the relentless drive to make the impossible practical. In New Orleans, his factories eventually quiet entirely. Workers move on to peacetime industries, but the ramps and hulls remain, a monument to innovation and perseverance. Children growing up along the Mississippi hear stories of the man whose designs carried armies, freed nations, and helped end a global conflict. Andrew Higgins never wore a uniform, never fired a weapon in anger, yet his impact on World War II rivals that of any general. One civilian, armed only with determination, wood, steel, and vision, reshaped the battlefield, proving that sometimes, victory belongs not to those who command armies but to those who build the means for soldiers to fight. The legacy is clear. Higgins' boats are more than vessels. They are a testament to the power of ingenuity, perseverance, and the quiet heroism of a civilian who changed the course of history. Post-war 1946, New Orleans and the world beyond. The smoke and roar of battle have faded, replaced by the steady rhythm of reconstruction. Across oceans and continents, the world reflects on the lessons of World War II, and in naval and military circles, one name keeps surfacing: Higgins. His boats are no longer just vessels of war, they are symbols of innovation, adaptability, and the quiet courage of civilian ingenuity. In classrooms and military academies, cadets study the LCVP and its derivatives. They trace its design, its ramps, its shallow draft, marveling at how a single flat-bottomed craft could change the dynamics of amphibious warfare. Engineers draw inspiration from its simplicity and functionality, recognizing that true innovation often comes from bending rules and challenging assumptions. Across the United States, historians document Higgins' impact. They recount the countless lives saved during D-Day, the Pacific Island campaigns, and every amphibious operation in between. They write about how tens of thousands of soldiers trusted these boats with their lives, and how one civilian's vision enabled armies to cross oceans, overcome fortified defenses, and secure victory. Even popular culture acknowledges it. Films, documentaries, and memoirs immortalize the LCVP, often calling it the boat that won the war. Veterans return to the docks where Higgins' boats once launched, sharing stories of waves, gunfire, and the strange, reassuring sight of that flat steel ramp cutting through surf to deliver them onto foreign shores. Andrew Higgins himself becomes a quiet legend. Though he never sought fame, medals, or accolades, he receives national recognition. Presidents, admirals, and generals honor him for his contribution to the war effort. Yet he remains true to his nature, hands calloused, mind racing with ideas, always looking ahead to the next challenge. And the impact does not end with World War II. The principles he pioneered, mass production of simple, durable landing craft, adaptability to extreme conditions, and the prioritization of function over aesthetics, influenced naval design for decades. The Korean War, Vietnam, and even modern amphibious operations carry echoes of Higgins' vision. Across every beach, river, and shoreline where amphibious landings occur, the legacy of one civilian persists. It is a legacy of determination, ingenuity, and the extraordinary power of a single idea executed with relentless skill. Andrew Higgins' story is more than history. It is a testament, a reminder that war is not won solely by generals or armies, but also by those who craft the tools that make victory possible. His boats carried men to freedom, reshaped strategy, and ensured that courage on the battlefield would never be limited by the capabilities of the vessels that carried them. From the muddy swamps of Louisiana to the beaches of Normandy, from the Pacific Islands to classrooms and shipyards decades later, Higgins' work lives on, proving that one civilian's vision can indeed change the course of history. Post-war 1950, New Orleans and the world beyond. The factories that once roared with the sound of hammers, torches, and engines are quieter now. Yet, in the minds of those who fought across Europe and the Pacific, the echo of Higgins' boats lingers, a constant reminder of ingenuity meeting necessity in the crucible of war. Veterans gather on anniversaries, their eyes scanning the calm waters where once waves of steel craft had surged against fortified beaches. They share stories of the flat-bottomed boats that carried them through hell, recalling the roar of engines, the spray of surf, and the reassuring sight of the bow ramp dropping open under enemy fire. Each story, each memory circles back to one name, Higgins. In New Orleans, Andrew Higgins walks through a quieter yard, older now, hands scarred from decades of labor. He pauses by the slipways where the boats were once launched, fingers brushing against the worn wood and steel. Though he never sought recognition, the city, the Navy, and the nation have remembered him. Schools, naval institutions, and museums preserve his legacy not for his wealth, his fame, or his temper, but for the simple, profound fact that he gave soldiers a chance to survive and fight another day. Historians continue to marvel at what a single civilian achieved. They note that while generals and admirals plan battles, it is the innovation of people like Higgins that transforms strategy into reality. One man armed with vision and determination reshaped the very way wars could be fought, proving that courage takes many forms not just in battle, but in workshops and factories, in ideas brought to life under immense pressure. Across the globe, decades later, Higgins' boats remain an emblem of wartime ingenuity. From classrooms to naval academies, engineers study his designs, officers train on their descendants, and every landing operation carries whispers of the lessons he pioneered. Yet perhaps the most enduring legacy is human. Soldiers saved, victories secured, and lives forever changed because one civilian refused to accept no as an answer. In quiet reflection, Higgins' story teaches a simple truth. Greatness often comes from the courage to act when others doubt, to build when others hesitate, and to innovate when the world seems impossible. And in that truth, Andrew Higgins remains immortal, not through medals or monuments alone, but through every life carried ashore, every battle won, and every story told of the man who turned a humble Louisiana boat into a tool that changed the course of history. 1950s across the United States. The war may have ended, but the ripples of Andrew Higgins' innovation continue to spread. Engineers, military planners, and young designers study his methods, analyzing how one civilian transformed the course of global conflict. His work becomes a blueprint not just for ships, but for problem-solving in times of crisis. Higgins' story teaches that ingenuity often comes from the margins, not the center. While generals and admirals debated traditional strategy, Higgins tested ideas on the muddy waters of Louisiana bayous. He understood the importance of simplicity, of designing tools that could be produced quickly, repaired easily, and trusted implicitly under fire. Every rivet, every plank, every engine placement reflected a balance of practicality and vision. Another lesson is persistence against skepticism. Washington's bureaucrats initially dismissed him, the Navy doubted him, and industry rivals tried to block him. Yet Higgins pressed forward, building, testing, and refining. He understood that innovation requires stubbornness, a willingness to continue even when the world says no. Finally, his story underscores the power of civilian contribution to wartime efforts. Not all heroes wear uniforms. Not all victories are fought on beaches. Sometimes victory begins in a workshop, guided by a mind willing to imagine the impossible and hands capable of making it real. The men who stormed Normandy, the Marines who landed in the Pacific, and the millions who survived because of those landings are the living proof of what one civilian can achieve. Today, when naval officers train on landing craft, when engineers develop amphibious vehicles, and when historians recount the extraordinary feats of World War II, Higgins' influence is unmistakable. His boats remain a testament to vision, courage, and the enduring impact of one determined individual. And for anyone willing to look closely, his legacy is more than historical fact. It is a guide, a challenge, and a call to action, to see a problem, imagine a solution, and refuse to let doubt or bureaucracy stand in the way. Andrew Higgins may have been a civilian, but through his boats he built the bridge between imagination and history, proving that one person with ingenuity and determination can truly change the world. 1950s present, from naval academies to battlefield innovations worldwide. Decades after the guns fell silent, the influence of Andrew Higgins resonates in the design of modern amphibious warfare. Landing craft today, faster, larger, more technologically advanced, still carry the DNA of his original LCVP. Flat hulls, reinforced ramps, and the principle that men and material must reach hostile shores efficiently and reliably. Military strategists study his approach to mass production and adaptability. In conflicts from Korea to Vietnam, and later in peacekeeping and humanitarian operations, Higgins-inspired vessels proved critical. Commanders rely on fast, versatile craft to deploy troops and supplies under extreme conditions, just as Higgins demonstrated decades earlier. Beyond the hardware, his methods inform modern thinking about civilian-military collaboration. Higgins showed that innovation does not only flow from generals or defense contractors. Visionary civilians working outside traditional channels can deliver solutions that redefine the battlefield. His insistence on speed, simplicity, and practical design became lessons embedded in military training and industrial engineering alike. Even in the age of drones, hovercraft, and amphibious assault vehicles, Higgins' influence remains. The principle is unchanged. A reliable craft can mean the difference between a successful operation and a catastrophic failure. Engineers still trace the lineage of modern landing craft to that flat-bottomed vessel from New Orleans, marveling at its enduring practicality. Naval historians and veterans alike recount the LCVP as the ultimate example of necessity driving invention. Its success has inspired generations of engineers to balance ingenuity with pragmatism, to build tools that serve both human lives and strategic goals. Every modern amphibious landing, from drills to real-world operations, carries a silent tribute to the man who once walked a shipyard floor, envisioning a boat that could carry thousands safely to shore. Higgins' legacy is not merely historical. It is living doctrine, proof that one civilian's vision can echo across decades, oceans, and battlefields. Modern New Orleans, present day. The once bustling slipways of Higgins Industries are quieter now, replaced by museums, memorials, and guided tours celebrating the city's pivotal role in World War II. Visitors walk among restored landing craft, observing the flat hulls and steel ramps that once carried soldiers into history. Each vessel tells a story of courage, ingenuity, and the civilian mind that reshaped warfare. Schools and naval academies frequently host field trips here, allowing students and cadets to trace the design of the LCVP, see firsthand how a simple craft could change the tide of battle, and learn about Andrew Higgins, the man behind it all. Veterans often return, their fingers brushing the weathered steel, recounting tales of surf, fire, and survival. "This boat saved lives," they whisper. "It got us there." Annual ceremonies commemorate Higgins' contributions, attended by military officials, historians, and city leaders. Streets in New Orleans bear his name. Plaques and statues honor his work not as a uniformed hero, but as a civilian whose stubborn determination and creativity provided the tools for victory. Globally, Higgins' influence is still felt. Military strategists reference his designs when planning modern amphibious operations. Museums in London, Washington, and Tokyo display replicas of the LCVP, emphasizing how one civilian's vision can impact the course of history. Perhaps the most enduring tribute comes from the countless lives saved and battles won because of his work. Soldiers, engineers, and historians alike continue to study and honor his methods, ensuring that Andrew Higgins' story remains not just a chapter in history books, but a living lesson in ingenuity, perseverance, and the power of one civilian to change the world. Even today, when a boat slides smoothly into the surf during training exercises or humanitarian missions, the echo of Higgins' design can be felt, a reminder that innovation, courage, and determination are timeless. Across decades and oceans, the story of Andrew Higgins offers more than history. It offers a lesson in vision, courage, and the transformative power of civilian innovation. He was not a general, not a politician, not a decorated soldier. Yet his ideas carried armies, shaped strategies, and altered the course of a global conflict. From the muddy bayous of Louisiana to the beaches of Normandy, from the coral reefs of the Pacific to the classrooms of modern naval academies, Higgins' work demonstrates a simple truth: one determined individual can change the world. He refused to accept no from bureaucrats, ignored the doubters, and trusted in his ingenuity and the skills of his workforce. The LCVP, the humble Higgins boat, is a physical embodiment of this lesson. Its flat hull and drop ramp were revolutionary not because of cutting-edge technology, but because they solved a real problem with practical ingenuity. Soldiers trusted it under fire, commanders relied on it for strategy, historians recognize it as a turning point in amphibious warfare. Every landing it carried, every life it saved, proved that innovation paired with persistence can have effects far beyond imagination. Higgins' story also teaches the importance of bridging civilian skills and military needs. Often, solutions to the greatest challenges don't come from tradition or authority, but from fresh perspectives willing to challenge norms. His civilian status became his strength, allowing him to see possibilities the military overlooked. And finally, his legacy is about people. His boats carried soldiers, yes, but they also carried hope, determination, and the human drive to survive and succeed. Andrew Higgins reminds us that behind every great victory are countless unsung heroes whose ideas, labor, and courage shape history in ways that uniforms and medals alone cannot. As we look back on World War II, D-Day, and the island campaigns of the Pacific, one message stands clear: innovation, courage, and persistence, embodied in a single civilian, can tip the scales of history. The story of Andrew Higgins is a reminder that ordinary people, when guided by vision and determination, can do the extraordinary. And that lesson continues to inspire engineers, strategists, and dreamers to this day. Decades after the final battles of World War II, the name Andrew Higgins has become synonymous with ingenuity, perseverance, and the quiet power of civilian contribution. His boats, once humble crafts launched into rivers and oceans, are now symbols of what a single determined individual can achieve when vision meets action. Higgins' influence stretches far beyond the beaches of Normandy or the Pacific Islands. His insistence on practical design, rapid production, and adaptability transformed not only military operations, but also the way engineers and planners approach problem-solving in complex, high-stakes environments. Modern amphibious vehicles, military doctrines, and even humanitarian landing operations trace their lineage back to his principles. But perhaps the most enduring legacy is human. Millions of soldiers owe their survival and ultimately the success of campaigns to the boats he designed. The LCVP was more than steel and wood. It was a bridge between strategy and reality, between human courage and the tools that make action possible. Higgins' story also serves as a timeless reminder that heroism does not always come from the battlefield. It can be found in factories, workshops, and minds willing to confront skepticism, take risks, and innovate. One civilian armed with determination, skill, and imagination reshaped the course of history and proved that the boundaries of impact are defined not by title or rank, but by vision and perseverance. Today, as engineers design, students learn, and soldiers train, the echoes of Higgins' work remain present. Every landing, every mission, and every innovation that builds upon his principles carries his legacy forward. His life teaches that ordinary people, given the courage to act and the freedom to create, can achieve the extraordinary and in doing so change the world. The story of Andrew Higgins is not merely a chapter in World War II. It is a lesson in vision, determination, and the enduring impact of civilian ingenuity. A reminder that one person's ideas, executed with relentless purpose, can leave an imprint on history that lasts far longer than any battle. In the decades since World War II, Andrew Higgins' story has transcended history books to become a guiding example for innovators across all fields. His life teaches that practical ingenuity paired with relentless determination can solve problems that seem insurmountable, whether in war, industry, or modern technology. Higgins' approach demonstrates the importance of identifying real-world problems and designing solutions that work under pressure. He didn't build boats to impress committees or adhere to tradition. He built them to meet the urgent needs of soldiers facing life-and-death scenarios. This mindset, prioritizing effectiveness over prestige, remains relevant to engineers, entrepreneurs, and creators today. Another lesson is the courage to challenge established systems. Higgins faced skepticism from the military, bureaucrats, and competitors, yet he persisted. Innovators today can learn from his example. Groundbreaking ideas often face resistance, but perseverance and proof through results can break down barriers. Higgins also exemplifies the power of collaborative execution. He understood that vision alone wasn't enough. He relied on skilled workers, women, immigrants, and veterans to bring his designs to life. Modern innovators can draw from this lesson, recognizing that diverse teams, empowered to execute, can turn ambitious ideas into reality. Finally, his legacy is a reminder that impact is measured by outcomes, not recognition. Higgins never sought fame, medals, or accolades, yet the world remembers him because his work enabled success on a massive scale. Today's innovators can be inspired to focus on solving critical problems, knowing that meaningful contributions often outlast public attention or personal credit. From the beaches of Normandy to the islands of the Pacific, from shipyards in Louisiana to modern classrooms and laboratories, Higgins' life illustrates a timeless principle. Vision, courage, persistence, and practical execution can change the course of history and guide the innovators of tomorrow. The story of Andrew Higgins is as much about leadership as it is about innovation. His ability to inspire, organize, and drive his workforce under intense pressure provides enduring lessons for leaders in every field. In the crucible of wartime production, Higgins demonstrated that effective leadership combines vision, decisiveness, and trust in one's team. Higgins led by example. He walked the factory floors, often working alongside welders, carpenters, and engineers, demonstrating the standards he expected. His presence was a constant reminder that every detail mattered and that the commitment of one man could influence the performance of thousands. Modern leaders can draw from this. Visible, hands-on engagement cultivates accountability, respect, and shared purpose. Decision-making under pressure was another hallmark of his approach. Facing immense demands from the Navy and relentless deadlines, Higgins often bypassed bureaucracy, trusting his judgment to meet critical needs. He understood that delays can cost lives, and that decisive action, even in the absence of perfect information, can be the difference between success and failure. Today, leaders facing uncertainty can learn from his courage to act decisively while balancing risk and practical outcomes. Higgins also valued collaboration and empowerment. He recognized the diverse skills of his workforce, women, immigrants, and untrained laborers alike, and trusted them to execute his vision. By creating a culture where initiative and skill were rewarded, he multiplied his own effectiveness. Modern leadership lessons echo here. Empowering teams, recognizing talent, and fostering innovation across all levels produces results far beyond individual effort. Finally, Higgins' legacy demonstrates the importance of aligning leadership with purpose. Every decision he made, from design choices to production priorities, was anchored in the larger mission, delivering soldiers safely to shore. His clarity of purpose inspired dedication and precision, showing that leaders who connect day-to-day actions with a meaningful goal create teams capable of extraordinary achievements. Through the lens of history, Higgins exemplifies a rare combination: a visionary who could lead, a problem solver who could decide, and a civilian whose choices altered the course of a global conflict. His lessons in leadership and decision-making endure, guiding innovators, commanders, and managers long after the last LCVP slid into the water. Across the decades, Andrew Higgins has become more than a historical figure. He is a symbol of what innovation and courage can achieve when combined with determination and purpose. His LCVP boats, once simple steel and wood, now represent the power of human ingenuity to shape history, to bridge imagination with action, and to deliver results under impossible conditions. From Normandy's blood-soaked beaches to the coral reefs of the Pacific, these small vessels carried soldiers into the teeth of danger. Yet their impact extended far beyond any single battle. They demonstrated that a civilian, operating outside traditional hierarchies, could alter the course of a war, proving that ideas executed with precision and perseverance are as mighty as any army or fleet. Today, Higgins' story inspires not just military strategists and engineers, but innovators across all disciplines. Entrepreneurs, designers, and problem solvers study his work to understand how vision paired with practical execution can overcome skepticism, resource limitations, and enormous pressure. The lessons are timeless. Persistence, creativity, and decisive action can turn the improbable into reality. Memorials, museums, and naval academies preserve his legacy, but the greatest tribute lies in the countless lives his designs saved and the battles they made possible. Every modern landing craft, every amphibious operation carries the imprint of Higgins' innovation. He remains a reminder that courage is not only found in combat, but in workshops, factories, and minds willing to challenge convention. Andrew Higgins' life is a testament that ordinary individuals, guided by ingenuity and unwavering determination, can leave a mark that endures across generations. His boats were more than tools of war, they were vessels of possibility, symbols of courage, and enduring proof that one civilian's vision can shape the course of history. As we step back from the battles, the shipyards, and the surf of Normandy and the Pacific, the story of Andrew Higgins reveals a series of timeless lessons. His life and work show that vision, determination, and practical innovation can change the course of history, even when wielded by a single civilian rather than a general or admiral. Higgins teaches us the power of problem-focused creativity. He didn't design his boats to impress, he designed them to solve urgent life-and-death challenges. Modern innovators can take note, the most impactful solutions are often those that address real needs with elegant simplicity. He also exemplifies persistence in the face of skepticism. Faced with bureaucrats, doubters, and rivals, Higgins refused to yield. Innovation rarely comes without resistance, but steady conviction paired with results can overcome even entrenched obstacles. Finally, his story highlights the value of collaboration, empowerment, and purpose-driven leadership. Higgins relied on the skills of a diverse workforce, trusted them to execute his vision, and kept his focus on the broader mission, delivering soldiers safely to shore. This combination of leadership, vision, and practical execution is as relevant today as it was during the most pivotal moments of World War II. In the end, Andrew Higgins is more than a figure from history. He is a symbol, a reminder that ordinary people armed with ingenuity and resolve can achieve extraordinary outcomes. His boats carried men to victory, his vision carried the lessons of courage, innovation, and persistence across generations. For anyone looking to make an impact, whether in war, industry, or life itself, Higgins' story offers a guiding principle. See a problem, imagine a solution, trust your abilities, and never stop building. And in that principle lies the enduring legacy of a civilian who, with steel, wood, and vision, changed the world forever.